no friend to me. Wage a war, wage a war, wage a war, wage a war against mediocrity. It ain't no friend to me. Wage a war, wage a war, wage a war, wage a war against mediocrity. It ain't no friend to me. Wage a war, wage a war, wage a war, wage a war against mediocrity. It ain't no friend to me.
What's up out there, friends and family? It's your boy, the motivational teacher to the masses, bringing you again another edition of Motivational Monday. Happy Monday, everyone. Happy Genesis to a brand new week that we will never see again. Hope everybody's week is off to a fast start. To all of my replayers, hey, what's up, Vaniqua? Thank you for joining us and being prompt as always. I'm starting to see eyes add up. That's a good thing before I've shared it out to everybody. If you would, thank you all for joining. If you would, please share this to your top 5 relationships in your life. And you know what we say, if they can't grow with you, they can't go with you. And as I share this out to my top 5 relationships, again, if you get this from me, then you know you're in my top 5. And I'll tell you this, if you're getting it from Beverly, Vaniqua, or anybody else that's already on here, you should consider it a privilege to be in the top 5 of such people like this. These are people that are growing and growing. And man, it's such an honor to know that we could do it together. And I'm about to share it to my top 5. If y'all, hey, Gene, thank you for joining us. If y'all would give me about 30 seconds, if y'all would, man, just go ahead and get in the chat box and tell me how your week is going. I hope everybody's off to a prosperous week. Tell me some good things happening in your life right now, because we're going to break some more bread tonight. Hey, Elkie, thank you for joining us tonight. I see Vaniqua said her week is off to a great start. That's what I'm talking about, y'all. Doesn't matter what it looked like. We determine how we start and how it ends. You know, everything that we go through is temporary, whether good or whether bad. Most of this stuff is temporary. So we got to get to a mature place, no matter what's going on, to where we meet with triumph and disaster, and we treat those two imposters just the same. Because we know living in this earth, you're going to have trials, you're going to have tribulations. And I'm sharing this to my top 5. Productive. That's what I'm talking about. A productive start to the week. For all my replayers, give me 30 more seconds. We're almost up to 10 eyes, and I haven't even sent it out yet to my top 5. So if y'all would, please get in that chat box, type 4 or 5 names in that chat box, and tell them to hop in here with you as we begin to break this bread, because we about to get this thing going right now. All right. Let's get the show on the road. Thank y'all for joining us tonight. Episode 132 of Awaken Your I Am. Every time I do another episode, y'all, it amazes me at what God can do, or what God can do through an Awaken I Am. I remember episode 1, man, and it was just like yesterday, and I was just thinking about, man, like, where's the here tonight? We're talking about gap management. We're talking about episode 132, gap management. And I remember I was sitting there and I was just thinking, like, I was meditating. I'm thinking, like, why would a person not complete what the assignment that they had on their life from the foundation of the earth? What would be there? And I remember just sitting there thinking and like, and I came up with this one saying, man only has one problem, and it's seeing himself as God sees him. Let me change that. Is knowing himself as the great I am knows him. Everything else in our problem that shows up dysfunctional is a symptom of that problem, that we have to see ourselves, and not only see ourselves, know ourselves as the great I am sees us. And the challenge for a lot of us is that we have to get out of my yesterday and get into today and know that there's a brand new tomorrow that I've never seen before, that the great I am is ready and willing to awaken my I am to. Tonight, we're talking about gap management, but in order to get to that life, we have to work with the gaps that are in our lives. Like, I popped on Thursday for a brief moment, and I talked about the definition of gap management. That word gap manage, that we talked about the word gap. That word gap is a break or a hole in an object or between two objects. All right. Another definition, and one I like the most, is an unfilled space or interval or a break in continuity. And I like to identify the gaps in our lives as a break in continuity. What's up, Devon? You said you were going to be here on Sunday, bro. I'm happy to see you. Thank you for joining us, man. You starting to be a regular on here, and you chiming in this conversation. You help elevate this conversation, bro. So we really appreciate you all being here on here tonight. And we talked about the gap of the breaking continuity. And I know where I see myself, and I know what I see on the inside of me, but it's not a reflection externally of what I see on the inside of me, that there's a breaking continuity. And sometimes when there's a breaking continuity, people feel challenged. And sometimes we believe that the goals or the dreams, hey, Rajetta, the goals or the dreams that God has given us is not for us because there's a break in continuity, or because there's a break or a hole in between how I see myself and where I am today. There's a gap and a hole. And so for a lot of us, we begin to judge ourselves. Hey, Pat, thank you for joining us. We begin to judge ourselves based on that break in continuity. We say, oh, it must not be meant for me. Oh, it's not my time in this life. Oh, it just wasn't my season. Oh, what's for me is for me. Oh, what God got for me is for me. And we come up with all these nice sayings to justify my lack of gap management. Come on, man, I'm going to break bread tonight. These are what mortal Americans do. And that's why the majority of people that live in this earth take their greatest potential back to the grave with them. The books that were never written, stories that were never told, businesses that were never birthed, nonprofit organization that never came into fruition. All of these went back to the grave because we lack the ability to have gap management. Because I don't see it today does not mean that I'm not supposed to have it. Bread broken. Yep. Bread broken. I know there's a millionaire on the inside of me, but because I don't have a million today does not mean that I was not meant to be a millionaire. I know right now I'm not married, but it does not mean that you're not a wife to somebody, or you're not a husband to somebody. It just means in this moment in my time, I got gaps that I need to fill. Life is really one big gap that we are constantly managing and seeking to close. I just broke bread. Life is one big gap of the great I am, awakening your I am to the purpose of which you've been called to serve on this earth. And yep, I said that correctly. We've been called to serve. I said that correctly. Life is one big gap management exercising. How about that for simplification of life? Bill, baby, Bill takes time, persistence, and dedication. Yeah, Vanika, and the challenge, I'm going to try to start doing this tonight. I got to grow, baby, grow. I'm going to start trying to share some of these things like we do on Bridging the Nations as we talk too, so to encourage everybody to get in this conversation. But life is one big gap management. Let's stop making life more complicated than what it is. Let's stop making life so complicated that it's very hard to live, because I've made life so complicated that somehow in my mental capacity, I can't keep up with the demand of life. We've overcomplicated life. I'm telling you right now, it's the great I am trying to awaken your I am, and we've overcomplicated it, or we've allowed people to chime into our ear and help allow us to overcomplicate life to the place that we feel that we're no longer in control of our circumstances, we're no longer in control of our destiny, and we're no longer in control of our outcomes. We've got to that place, and I believe, hey mom, thanks for joining us. I believe that life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we respond. And I don't believe that anything in this life happens just my boy Fred Entertainer, willy-nilly. I don't think anything in this life happens willy-nilly. I think everything that God does, he's purposeful, and he's just in everything that takes place in this earth. And just understand that if I got to go through it, I can get through it. Know that thing, that situation was not meant to be the end of you. Just know that what you went through was temporary. It was not permanent. It was only to identify gaps. Life is one big gap management series. Life is one Big Gap Management Series. How about that for oversimplification of life? Motivational teacher, you don't know what I just been through. You don't know my kids. My kids don't listen to me. I don't speak to my oldest kid. My life is in so many shambles, and it's in this area, and it's in that area, and it's that area. It's only to reveal. What's up, Keith? Thanks for joining us, bro. It's only to reveal the gaps that exist in our life. Break bread, motivational teacher. When God told Isaac to lead Jacob up on the mountain and he was going to make Jacob into a sacrifice. When he told Jacob, I got to take you up here and I'm going to sacrifice him. That's what he told him. And Jacob began to take Isaac up the mountain because God was trying to show Jacob whether he had gaps, or trying to show Isaac his gaps in the thought that he had to sacrifice his only son when God said, from you many nations should come. He was trying to see, boy, do you have gaps on the inside of you? Do you truly believe what I said about you? That's a bread breaking moment right now. Do you truly believe what you said about who I am through you? Listen, man, gaps only come to reveal us to a higher purpose and a higher call in our life. Got to be able to fill those gaps. We're going to get into it, Devon. We're going to get into why we don't fill those gaps, because there's too many of us, man, that literally are just floating through life. We're floating through life and we're expecting great things to happen, but we're not working on our behalf, and we're only expecting God to do it. Why would a person not have gaps? Come on, man. I'm going to break bread tonight. Why would a person not have gaps? The only way a person doesn't have identified gaps in their life is if they have no goals or no dreams or no hopes for what tomorrow looks like in this earth. Come on, man. Come on, man. The person that doesn't have any goals or any dreams have no identified gaps. They're too comfortable. That person can never understand this language that I'm speaking, and that person can never understand the language that you speak. It's almost like we speak in two different whole languages. Although we are both speaking English, but we're speaking two different dialects that neither one understand. I don't understand average. I don't understand mediocrity. I don't even want the mindset that I'm able to sympathize with somebody that chose to live an average life. Average people make me itch. I can't comprehend it. That God is giving you gifts for this day, that your eyes work, your ears work, you're breathing out your body, and you telling me that you got reason as to why you want to be average? No, man. The gift that was given, the law of Genesis, the gift that was given was so great that we got to produce greatness back. I'm telling y'all, I have empathy and I have sympathy on everybody because everybody's story is different, but I have very little compassion for someone who chooses just motivational teacher. I just want to be average. I have no desire to do more. You mean to tell me that you can work on a job for 20 years and have no desire to move up one notch? Like, I fundamentally think there's something wrong with people that do one thing for a long period of time and have no desire to move up, have no desire to move up within role, have no desire to move up in any position, have no growth mindset opportunity around them ever. They have no desire to, I don't care if I work in 30 years. If I'm a custodian of this one building for 30 years, at least I'm gonna want to at some point be able to get the grass and the lawns and the yard also. I'm just not going to do 30 years in the same job and allow myself to dwindle away when God has given me creative abilities. I wonder for people who sit at one place for so long with no plans to grow. I just broke bread. And if that's you, Vanico said it, you're too comfortable. You're too comfortable. You're too comfortable. You've gotten to the place, hey, let me tell you, I'm going to do this. If you've gotten too comfortable, you know what that says? If you've got too comfortable, that says I'm too lazy to identify my gaps so I can keep growing. We're too comfortable. We got to change that cycle of being comfortable. We got to change that cycle of saying, just enough is enough. Hey, Angelique, thank you for joining us. We got to change that cycle of mediocrity in our life. I cannot just sit in one place for a long period of time and do not expect for growth to take place. It should become natural to move up. It should become natural to want to grow. It's natural that if you plant a seed out there, you water that seed, you till the fertilizer, it will naturally grow. Why? Because everything that God made is good and very good. Everything that God made is green and growing. I'm challenging you right now. If you sat in that seat of comfortability too long, I'm challenging you to move now and say, I got to get to gap management. The only person that has no identified gaps in their life is the person that has no goals and no dreams. Oh my God, I broke bread. Oh my God, I broke bread. I just broke bread. He will get up when it hurt enough. Come on. The dog laying on the nail will get up when it hurt enough. But I'm telling you though, I think that's Tina. I'm telling you, not Tina, I think that's Pat. Pat, I'm telling you, but when people get comfortable and they get stuck in status quo and they get stuck in that cycle of doing the same thing over and over and over again, they subconsciously believe that if I'm going to be here, I got to be in pain. They subconsciously believe that if I'm going to be here, this life is expected for me to be like the blind Bartimaeus. He was expected to be blind. He wanted to be blind. He made his living by being blind. He became so used to being blind that having sight was a figment of his imagination. And he no longer had a gap management process in order to grow his life, in order to gain my eyesight back. There's no way I would ever get comfortable in poverty. Traditional thinking kills dreams. Come on. I never remember a time when I haven't wanted to grow. I love learning, growing. There's always so much more to learn. It's a growth mindset. You can never get stuck in poverty. You can never get stuck in lack. Never become too uncomfortable in unbelief. It's always asking the question, why do I have this feeling? Why do I not want to grow? Why do I not want to keep progressing in my career or keep progressing in my business? I don't care if you're working on somebody's job. You better tell them they better find a promotion for you. I will no longer waddle in the pig pen of average. When I've been called to great, it's natural and healthy for a human being to desire to grow and success. It's innate in us to want to grow. But life, I'm telling y'all, if we don't learn gap management, we will become so depressed. We will become so depressed. We'll become so downtrodden. We'll become so negative minded that we will somehow subconsciously convince our conscience that my lot in life was supposed to be like this, and we move no farther than where we are today because I bought the lie that this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I'm supposed to be. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm saying this, and I hope nobody takes offense. I hope everybody understand that this is for your growth and development. You should never be just stuck, feel like you're stuck in any position or any place in your life. You should never feel that way. You got greatness on the inside of you. I'm telling you, you've got something so good on the inside of you, but the challenge, you'll never get to it if you don't learn how to begin to develop it, if you don't learn how to do gap management. The only person that does not have gaps is a person that cannot define their goals or their dreams, or they cannot define what they want in this life. They cannot articulate what I want from my space on this earth. I'm breaking bread right now. Most of us define our lives by position at work, or we define our lives by being our kids' parent, or we define our lives so narrowly that we give ourselves no room to be great. Oh my God, I just broke bread. That's a bread breaking moment if I've ever seen it. We don't want to take the mental energy or the time to clearly articulate what I want from this earth. Oh my God, I'm breaking bread. We'll rather take 5 or 10 minutes, 20 minutes talking to somebody that does not have my best interest in heart about what I should be doing on this earth, up more so than consulting the great I am, who is my number one business partner on this earth, my number one consultant. You sit in the council of God. He is godly. I sit in the godly council. Instead of consulting the great I am who awakens my I am, we'll stay on the phone 30 minutes with somebody that does not have our best interest in heart. And then we wonder why we lack the grit and the intestinal fortitude to go after what we want. Why? Because we've wallowed in the mud of insecurity. We've wallowed in the mud of mediocrity so long that it has now begun to grow on the inside of us. Now I can't see myself outside of the mud. I'm going to call a witness. Come here, prodigal son. Come here, prodigal son. There's a story this guy had a rich dad. He went and told his dad, "Dad, give me all my possessions. Right now, I'm leaving your kingdom. I want all my possessions." Dad gave him all his possessions. He took his possessions. He went to a faraway land, spent them all, and found himself wallowing in the pig pen with the pigs in the pen. Found himself sharing meals with the pigs in the pig pen. And then it said the guy came to himself and said, "Servants in my father's house live better than me in this pig pen." He came to himself. He had been in that pig pen so long that that had become his way of thinking and his way of life, that he identified more with the pig than he did the servants at his father's house. And a lot of us, without managing our gap, have learned to live within the pig pen when I got a kingdom, or I got a father, or I got a business partner that owned the cattle on 1,000 hills. But nonetheless, I would negotiate with my great I am to go live in the pig pen because it's what I know and it's comfortable to me. That's a bread breaking moment. It's comfortable to me. I'd rather go to the pig pen, waddle, and make that my new life than go back to my father and say, "Man, my bad, I missed the mark. I need to come back home." I don't need to be a son like I once was, but at least allow me to be a servant. At least allow me to be like somebody that served. I ain't saying that I want my spot back on the throne. He went back and said, "I just want to be a servant." And his dad accepted him back with wide open arms and said, "Man, go kill the fatted calf. My son that was once gone is back. He is back." And my challenge to us is that, number one, that son identified that this life that I have is not my own. We got to come to the conclusion sometime that the life that I live is not the one that was destined and designed for me from the foundation of the earth. I'm okay with where I am right now, but I understand that there's more. I've gotten accustomed to wallowing in the pig pen, but understand I belong in the palace. Understand I belong in the palace, and now there's a gap between this pig pen and the palace. And the prodigal son said, "Man, I got to find a plan." He said, "Man, like I know I can't go back. It don't even feel good going back asking for my place right down the throne." He identified the gap and he started gap management. He would have never came out that pig pen if he never came to himself and realized that there's something more that where I came from that I can always get back to if needed. And I'm challenging you that there was something you came from that was much greater that you could get back to if you needed. The great I am awakens my I am. He knew what you were before you got here. When that doctor slapped you on your bottom, you became a living being and he sent you into your mission. If I ever get lost anywhere along my mission, I got to understand I can go back from where I came from and get the right information and begin to change my life. Man, I'm breaking bread right now. Come on, Angelique. Breaking bread, gap management. Scoot over, there's more than enough room. Come on, Queen Elizabeth. I'm telling you right now, this life is all about identifying gaps. The person who cannot, thank you, Elkie, the person that cannot clearly articulate why they're here on earth will never identify their true gaps. They'll never uncover where their gaps are because I cannot clearly articulate why I am here. I'm going to let that breathe. Can you clearly articulate why you are on this earth? We're talking about gap management. Can you clearly say, I am the motivational teacher to the masses? And see, most of us are looking for some divine connection. We're looking for lightning to fall from the air. The first time you make that confession, it's going to feel empty. It's going to feel void of power, but you got to say it so many times, and you got to believe it so many times, and you got to identify where I am today with 14 eyes and where I need to be to have 5,000 eyes. What's my gap? And I got to begin working within my gap. Can you articulate? Can you define clearly what you want? I can tell you what, with that first story I told, that prodigal son realized he didn't want the life that he had. And so he realized clearly that there's a way for me to get out the pig pen and at least get to a regular meal. You have to be able to articulate what you want, because once you can articulate it, the great I am start pulling puzzle pieces in to connect the dot, to connect the puzzle. I remember Steve Harvey telling his story. And when he was telling his story, he said, man, I remember the night that I was reborn. He said he had rode with a girlfriend of his almost 50 miles to do a comedy show. And the cash prize of winning that comedy show was $50. He said, man, I got to try something new. Working at this plant is not working for me. Steve identified a gap. He identified a gap that this plant life is not long-term for me, that this plant life is not meant to be for me my whole life. He said, they say I'm funny. He identified a gap. He said, let me try this comedy thing. And so his girlfriend drove him those miles to do that comedy show. He went and did that comedy show, won that small purse. And he said that was the night he felt like he was reborn. He said he cried all the way back to his hometown, because he had now found out what he was supposed to deliver on this planet, which was comedy. He said he was reborn that night. But what if Steve never identified the gap of working in the plant? What if somehow he subconsciously believed that I'm just supposed to be working in this plant the rest of my life? Come on, man. What if he had to believe that, man, all I could be is an hourly worker? What if he believed the biggest impact that I can have in my life is within this plant? If I'm going to change lives, it's going to be within this plant. My domain that God has given me is Ford Motor Company in this plant. Then we will never know the Steve Harvey that we know today, because he identified that as his truth. And he went to no gap management. Anybody that ever became great had to go gap management and begin to grow and begin to define and articulate exactly what they want from this earth. The moment you're able to articulate what you want from this earth, that's number one. The second part we have to do is be able to evaluate. He wasn't comfortable with what he was doing, so he made that decision. But there's so many humans that stay in positions where they're comfortable, and they're not worried about their design. You've been destined for design. You've been designed for destiny. They're not worried about their destiny or how they've been designed. They're too comfortable. I've been in the same hometown for all these years. I never ventured out. I don't want to go out no more than 15 miles of where I think the stat says 85% of the people never move more than 20 miles from where they grew up. Never move more than 20 miles from where they grew up. That says, man, motivational teacher, I just want to be comfortable. Like, I don't want to work on gaps. Gaps require thought. Oh my God, that's a bread-breaking moment. Gaps require thought, and as adults, we want somebody else to tell us what to do. That's why the majority of the wealth, I ain't gonna say that's why. Most of the reason why majority of wealth lies in 1% of hands is because most of us are waiting to be told what to do. And that 1% would gladly tell us what to do so they can make more money off the backs of us who's really doing the work. If you want to move up in any organization, I tell you what, start doing less physical activity and start doing more thinking. And that's the challenge with our American society is they see minorities like ourselves as people who could do the work, but they don't see us as people who could create the ideas. who can formulate the plan and pass the instructions down. They see us as being able to do the physical labor, but they don't see us as being able to run. They can see us as being a linebacker or a running back, but they can't see me as a GM or a head coach. That's the problem with the society. And subconsciously, Martin Luther King talked about it in his speech to those kids in Memphis. He talked about it, that we've somehow bought into that narrative that all we can be is the hourly worker or the person from 9 to 5, so we no longer strive for excellence in everything that we do, because we subconsciously believe that all I can be is this hourly worker. So why should I identify gaps if they never gonna promote me? They're never gonna make me the crew chief. They're never gonna make me the manager. They're never gonna make me the general manager. They're never gonna make me the head coach. They're not gonna give me the money I need to start my business. So why should I identify and begin to fill those gaps if I don't see the need to ever get to where I want to go? That's a bread-breaking moment. And we've allowed other people to shape our thinking about who we are. To me, that's the saddest thing on earth. To me, that's the saddest thing on earth. Hey, I like that, Angelique. Conditioned to do labor and not innovate. Oh my God, you just broke bread. Conditioned to do labor and not innovate. I gotta break bread, man. I'm gonna tell y'all this. I'm gonna put my water down. I'm probably gonna need it again in a minute. I'm gonna break bread. One of the reasons why I feel so passionate about what I'm doing, and I feel so passionate about my platform, is because this whole speaking platform came from a step of faith. Like, it was never my intentions to be a motivational speaker. It was never my intentions to wage war on mediocrity. Man, let me tell you, like, I have always been so ashamed of my story. And I was talking to somebody this week that I didn't even know spend a lot of time with us on these motivational Mondays. And man, I appreciate you all chiming in and having this conversation with us. And he said, I heard your story, and your story is similar to mine. He said, but I've lived under the shadow of my story for so long that I think people are going to judge me if they knew where I came from. So I dress myself up and I put on this new facade so people don't know where I'm from. And man, I got to tell you, when speaking to that young brother, it helped me understand that my platform was birthed because of gap management. Oh my God, that's a bread-breaking moment. Because I felt so uncomfortable with people knowing my story, that I grew up, that my mom worked hard, my aunts, they worked hard, my uncles, they worked hard, but now my dad was in out of prison. I was first to get a high school diploma. I was thinking so much that people going to judge me and see me for where I came from versus where I am today. And I'm thinking people going to judge my mom and my family based on my story. So I can't put it out there because now they're going to be judgment. And so my whole speaking platform was birthed because of gap management. I said, if that's the very thing that I'm being fought against, in order for me to overcome it, I got to do it. Oh my God, I'm being vulnerable tonight. That's a bread-breaking moment. The thing that I felt the most insecure about is tied to the thing that was meant to put me before great men. The thing that I was most insecure and I'm most ashamed about was the thing that God needed in order to birth the motivational teacher out in front of me so I can help heal and shape many lives that might look like mine. I could tell you another example of a man that his ministry or his calling was birthed from his insecurity. Moses, go tell Pharaoh to let my people go. But I can't tell Pharaoh to let him go because he won't understand my words. Moses was a stutterer, and here God is taking the thing that Moses is most afraid of, most insecure about, the thing that Moses cries about at night before he goes to bed, the thing that Moses most despised about his life, the thing that Moses thought had him feeling inadequate and somewhat special, that he needed more, he needed somebody else. The very thing that Moses thought made him was a deficient was the very thing that the great I am wanted to use in order to deliver 4 million people. The very gap that Moses spent his whole life of, I'm not eloquent, speak. Go get Aaron and let Aaron do it. Can you imagine Moses stuttering to God when God is telling him to go tell Pharaoh to let my people go? And Moses is telling God how I stutter, not knowing that God formed him from the foundation of the earth, not understanding that God birthed him for a purpose and a cause in this time for a season such as this. But what if Moses had allowed himself to never discover gap management and allowed himself to, I'm just a stutterer. What can God do with a stutterer? What can God do with a stutterer? He can't. What if I good if I get? I'm not go to the beach. Go get Aaron. Aaron speaks very well. Aaron is eloquent of speech. God, Aaron can tell Pharaoh, and it sounds like Aaron is a lawyer. It sounds like Aaron has been on the top of the mountain with you. It sounds like Aaron is the guy for the job. And God said, Moses, put that staff down. Moses put the staff down. He picked it back, turned to a snake, picked it back up. It turned to a rod. Moses threw it down again. It did the same thing. God said, he told Moses, if I could do that with that rod and that staff, what do you think I could do with your tongue? And the challenge for a lot of us is we've never allowed ourselves to see ourselves how God sees us. You're never going to gap management as long as you believe you stutter. You're never going to gap management as long as you're condemned, as long as you're insecure about how you came up, because the very thing that you're struggling with is attached to where you're supposed to go. Oh, I just broke bread. The very thing that you fight in your life is the thing that you're tied to. Oh, let me break bread. The very thing that was meant to bring you into your wealthy place is the very thing that you want. You kind of afraid and you're nervous about doing. Why? Because your whole life you've spent stuttering, and now I can't believe that God wants to use this whole gift for his glory. When I went to college, my first year in college, and I'm being very vulnerable here. When I went to college, my first year, I had success playing basketball. I was Mr. Alabama with basketball, the best player in the state that year I came out. And I went to the Harvard of the South, which is Vanderbilt University. And somehow, somewhat on the inside of me, I said, I got to do something more. And I went out and I went to Vanderbilt. My first year there, my first semester at Vanderbilt, I had the lowest GPA on the basketball team. I had the lowest GPA on the basketball team. My first year at Vanderbilt, I didn't play. I went from being the best player in the state of Alabama for not even touching the floor my first semester playing basketball. And so you can imagine, around the same time, my dad has been investigated for a very long, by the feds, and all this stuff is going on. And on the inside of me, I'm that same little insecure kid. I'm sitting in Vanderbilt in a place where I believe there was more, but I'm still fighting the same. Do I really belong here? Can I really finish? Like, did I make the right choice? And I'm second and I'm third guessing every decision I made up into my life, up until that moment. And there's just so much on the inside of me that's saying, man, and I packed my car and said, there's so much on the inside of me that's saying, man, just go back to where you belong. Go back to where nobody expects you to make it anyway. I read an article in the paper. Would I be able to survive up there? Did I have the intellectual capacity because my high school stayed on academic probation? Was I going to be able to make it? I'm being vulnerable tonight to help you understand that life is one big series of gap management. And I was struggling. In my mind, life could not get any worse at that moment in my life. And I'm struggling not with what my situation was today at Vanderbilt, because that was my present reality. I was struggling with that insecurity. I was struggling with, man, I know my dad, nobody on my dad's side, no male on my dad's side finished high school. I know no male on either side got a college degree. Can I make it? And I'm sitting there and I got this, as an 18-year-old kid, I got this internal battle on the inside of me that I'm fighting that 50-year-old men and women would just let lie dormant and decide not to deal with it. And not to deal with it. And I'm sitting there trembling, but I'm trusting. And I packed my car. No joke. I packed my car with tears running down my eyes. I looked in my rearview mirror. With my car packed up, and my mom gave me a Bible. I'm being as transparent as I can. My mom gave me a Bible. And man, I grew up in the church, and I knew when things go rough, I can always go back to my Bible. I knew that. Now, I don't know why I didn't go to my Bible before I packed my car, but I went to it after I packed my car. It was packed to the T. I was ready to come home. This is not for me. And man, I told my mom the story. I grabbed that Bible and I opened that Bible up, and it was a $1 bill in that Bible. And written around the white of that dollar bill was Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. On each side of that white of that dollar bill, it was written, for I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. Philippians 4:13 was written on those ends, and I can do all things through Christ was written twice on those ends. I opened that Bible and I saw that dollar, and tears began to run down my eyes because I understood something about me then that has me sitting in this same seat today. That when I face the greatest fears of my life, that is no longer me who's fighting them, but it's God fighting them through me. At that moment in my life where I was the most vulnerable that I've ever been, up until that point where I needed a word, where I needed comforting, there was nothing more comforting than the words written around the white of that dollar bill. And I say that story because I want to say this to you, that no matter where you are or what your situation is, just know that there's always space, that you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you, but there's always a place for you to get beyond that moment of time of where you are today to where you can be eventually. And like I said, this whole waging war was started because I was so insecure. God would show up and show out. I was so insecure about where I was and what I was supposed to do. And the very reason that I was so insecure about what I was supposed to do, I said, man, there must be other people out there like me. And if I can be that dollar bill to anybody's life in any period of time, what that dollar bill represents to me is a word in due season. And if I could be a word to any human in due season that allows them to push past their fears and their insecurities and their unbelief, then I'll get through my own pain to help somebody else deal with theirs. And this whole motivational speaking was birthed from that movement. It was birthed from this movement. And my challenge to us is, will we continue to allow the things that I'm most insecure about to hold me back? Or will I now begin to start identifying where my gaps are and say, I gotta move beyond what I know now? If you were insecure and this is you now, wow, I'm telling you, man, that's the space on the dollar visual. The dollar visual is big, man. I'm telling you, it was like a word in due season. And my mindset, my thought process is, if I can be a word in due season to any human, not everybody will have a Bible with a dollar in it, but a lot of people peruse the internet. And if I can be that in any season for any person, then you know what? I get over my fears. I get over my unbelief. I get over how I see myself to see me as you see me, so that through me, you can do great works. And the moment we get moving beyond, I think Paul said it like this: I became all things to all men so that I can win a few. I think Paul said it like that. If I gotta get beyond this place in order to build generational wealth for my children's children, then I that's okay. I'll be uncomfortable for this season. I'll be uncomfortable for this season if it gives me an opportunity to win somebody, to help somebody see that they can fight further, go longer, and play harder. Then you know what? I'll sacrifice for this season because I know there's a far greater reward on this side of the dirt for the work that I'm doing when I don't see the results. Even when even you all heard my Jersey retirement speech. Y'all heard my Jersey retirement speech. Like, I don't really care about my jersey going in a rafter to say, look at Anthony Williams. He was number 32. He did this and he did that. For me, it's never about my jersey hanging in the rafters. It's more for me to know that there's a kid that sat in the same desk, same chair I sat in, to see my number and say, wow, if he can do it, then I can do it. It's never really ever about us. It was never really about Moses. Moses would have liberated 4 million people, never saw the promised land, but there was nobody on earth that ever walked closer to God than Moses. That's a bread-breaking moment. That's a bread-breaking moment. The moment we start putting other people's needs in front of ours, the moment we start putting our awakened I am in front of ours, is the moment that we begin to decrease and the purpose of which we've been called begin to increase. See, the call, the gift, and the purpose cannot increase until what I see begins to decrease. Moses only saw himself as a stutterer, as an angry stutterer. He only saw himself until that could decrease. The Moses that we know could not increase. Moses had to go into gap management. Boy, that's a bread-breaking moment. He had to go into gap management. I told the story, I think, on Bridging the Nations on yesterday about LeBron. For you all that didn't get it, LeBron being 16, having a commercial talking to the 38-year-old LeBron. And he had to tell, you got to go back and listen to Bridging the Nation. I'm not going to go through the whole story. But the 16-year-old LeBron asked the 38-year-old version of LeBron, will we make it to the league? LeBron shook his head. Yeah, he said, but I'll tell you what, we had to call our own shots. We had to be willing to walk beyond what we know. We had to be willing to walk beyond what we know. We had to find resources to shrink that gap. See, I'm telling you right now, there's nothing between where you are today and where you want to be other than the fact that you gotta, come on, I got some homework to do, motivational teacher, gap management. Angelique, we will all got it. Had to find the glue bridge to the gap. I'm telling you, y'all, that, listen, man, let's not make this more complicated than what it is. In order to get from here today to here in a month or a year, however long your gap management period is I got to get new information. I got to get new information. You can never begin to shrink a gap without new information. You can get new knowledge, new education. There's something you're missing in order to fill that gap. You have to get new information. In all you're getting, get understanding. Wisdom is the principle. If you're not getting new information, ladies and gentlemen, it's impossible for you to grow. Now, you could go through life and get slapped upside the head a lot of times, and you do gap management from crises to crises because I never learned the lesson. I never begin to close the gap. So now I live from crises to crises, and now life I got to go to prison to learn that I can't sell drugs. You know what I mean? I got to go through a divorce to learn that everything in my life can't be about me. I got to go through drug use to try to figure out the value of my life or the purpose for my life. I got to go through chapter 13. I got to go into debt to figure out how to save money. You don't have time to hit every pitfall in order to learn. Yeah, say it, Vaniqua, I'll pass on those. Nah, I'll pass on those. You don't have time. Or you running hurdles in the Olympics, and you're gonna hit every hurdle along the way and somewhat believe you're supposed to win the race. That's contradictory. That's an oxymoron. There's no way that if you're running a 400 hurdle, you hit 8 hurdles along the way and you somehow expect, oh, I'm going to win this race. The race is not given to the swift nor the strong, but the one to endure to the end. That's a lie. You hit every hurdle, you're not going to win the race. Bump. Oh, I had to learn that lesson the hard way. I got a knot on my head the size of Mount Rushmore. Bump. I broke both my legs. I had to learn that lesson the hard way. You don't have to learn every lesson the hard way. You have to go into gap management. Now, it's unfortunate that some lessons come through learning the hard way. Like, I had a divorce. I was debt broke. Foreclosed. A lot of things went wrong in my life. And I had to hit those hurdles. No, I didn't have to hit those hurdles. I chose not to go into gap management. Those hurdles helped me understand that I needed gap management, but I didn't need those hurdles for gap management. Let me tell you why. I grew up in poverty. I knew what poverty was. I knew how my dad got to prison. I understood how we got broke. Like, I should have went, honestly, coming up, I should have went into gap management way before I got broke. But I needed new information. And until I could get that new information, I could not seek a different experience. I could not go into gap management. I can only produce what I know. If I grew up in poverty, poverty grew up in me, and I get no information to change that poverty spirit, then all I could produce is poverty. And I was making hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. And I could not escape poverty. Why? Because there was no gap management. Now, I subconsciously believe that if I made more money, I'd never be broke. If I could just make when I was making $30,000, if I could just make $50,000, I'd never be broke. Got to 50, was still broke. If I could make 75,000, then I'll be good. I was still broke. Got 6-figure earner. Once I get to 6 figures, I'll never be broke again in my life. Got to 6 figures, was broke again. Matter of fact, I was the brokest I've ever been at 6 figures. We created new ways to get in debt. Why? Because it wasn't the amount of money that was making me broke. It was the decisions and my life experience, what I grew up in, that was making me broke. I was just as broke with 100,000 as I was with 30,000. I had no gap management. That I needed new information that changed my mindset. That you see people all the time that sign $20 million contracts, that win the lottery, and they're broke in 7 years. Why? There's no gap management. No gap management. And until we learn how to manage the gap, define what we want, gain new information to shrink that gap, then we can sit here and pray, shout in tongues, murmur. We can rob banks. You can do all those things. The more you make, the more you spend when you got a poverty mindset. Because somehow, I'm telling you, poverty mindset make you think if you get more things, and most of the time it's just for the people around you, so they don't know you have a poverty mindset. The things aren't really for your lifestyle. You can't even enjoy them because you can't pay for them. You got a brand new S500 out there in the yard, and gas now is $140 to fill it up. You can't even drive it. You got to go get a different car. You got to go get a different car because you can't drive your main cars because you can't afford to put gas in it now. You can't even enjoy those things that you accumulated. Why? Never quite went into gap management. Yeah, it's not even for you. Shaking my head. I'm shaking mine too. Because like now it's like this picture, like the wool have been pulled over our eyes so long that we just couldn't see beyond what we knew. And the only way to start seeing beyond what you know is by gaining new information. That's why Satan wished to keep us ignorant. That's why people in this world wish to keep you ignorant so you cannot outperform what you did 5 years ago. I'm telling you, growth is not natural for human. It's just, physical growth is human. Physical growth is natural to humans. And I think some subconsciously we believe that spiritual growth, we believe that emotional growth is as natural as physical growth, but it couldn't be even more different. He said, I couldn't even manage the dollar first, but want to win a Powerball. It's a challenge. Man, I just want us to know, until we go into gap management, the results that we gain will be very minimal. It wasn't until Moses, it wasn't until Isaac, it wasn't until I talked about Steve Harvey. It wasn't until they started putting a plan in place, or it wasn't until the motivational teacher to the masses start putting a plan in place to cover the gap. Like the results that you want to see, I got to tell you, thank you, Elkin. The results that you want to see on the other side of your gap management, we've made it so, we've convinced ourselves that it's so difficult to get the masses, or we've made it so difficult to become the DON. It's so difficult to become the artist. Like everything in between are experiences to teach us how to grow into that person we were designed to be. They were not meant to make you quit. They were not meant to make you cry. I know all them dollars wasted. Boy, I sure wasted a lot of them. And most of them were on revolving debt. Most of them dollars were wasted on revolving debt. And I'm challenging you not to make the same mistake, to go ahead and start gaining new information about where I want to be. And I love how you all change. Start seeing yourself as the finished product. I am the motivational every time I touch the mic, I'm going to shout it out multiple times. Not that I see masses looking at me now, but I know what's been given to me on the inside. And I call those things that be not as if they were, and I'm willing to do the work in order to get there. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all have been phenomenal tonight. I'm going to challenge you all to go back and, man, find 20, 30 minutes of this that you say, man, it really spoke to me, and listen to it 4 or 5 times this week. Listen to it 5 or 6 times this week. And that's one reason why I don't like putting more and more. We walk by faith and not, come on, Ryan. We walk by faith and not by sight. That's why I don't put a lot of content out multiple times a week, because I think if we could just chew on this one and just really learn, or allow the word to speak to me, or allow the great I am to speak through the words that I spoke about your awakened I am. I say one thing, you hear something on the inside of you that identifies with you. Like I think Angelique said, man, I got some work to do. She heard something that identified with her. Well, I take that word as mine, and now I begin to work on it and identify it. Hey, Sasha Ray, thanks for joining us. I take that word and I begin to identify exactly how that word spoke to me, and allow God to awaken my I am, so I don't have to get hit upside the head to know that I must grow. Digest it, better way to put it. Pat, you got to digest it. You got to get it and say, man, how can I apply this word to my life and see manifestation? Okay, last thing, I promise you I'm about to get off this thing. I got a lot of stuff I got to do. I got to get off this thing. Last thing, like the purpose of information is just not to learn it and to know it. I told you a story about last time. You got to go back and listen to last Monday about a friend of mine who's a therapist who knows all the right information to tell the clients, but the life in itself is a mess, because I got the head knowledge and I know what to say, but it have not become one with my heart, so I have no idea on how to manifest it in my life. Like, I don't want us to be that person who got all the information, but I have no idea how to use it. The information I have does not work for me. I don't want us to be those people. The people that just got a bunch of, no, I want us to live. I want live it. Come on, bro. I want us to be the people that get the manifestation from it. Don't be the person, oh, I know this. You know, if it ever come down to a quiz, trivia moment or a quiz, you got all the right answers, like the counselor does when it comes to talking to her patients. But when it comes to the life, I got no answers for my life, because all I learned was head knowledge. Never became one with my heart. We don't want that kind of manifestation. We want heart and head coherence. So me and this word become one. We manifest it on this earth. I told y'all, hey, Kaniki, I'm a player/coach. I'm manifesting it as I walk. That's why I'm challenging you to walk with us. Like, I get it. Most people like a finished product in front of them. Most people like Tyler Perry giving this thing. They love hearing Bishop T.D. Jakes doing this. It's cool. Stephen Furtick, they love hearing that. Denzel, they love Oprah. They're tuning in to Oprah Masterclass. I got nothing against it. Nothing against all of them that's done it. And they understand so many pitfalls and hurdles along the way. I get it. I listen to them too. But to me, there's something special about somebody that's walking through it today as I walk through it, deciphering information and giving it to us real time. To me, there's something about that makes it living. Like, I love hearing about the stories about when I was back there with you. I'm with us now. Like, I love hearing about the multi-billionaires and trillionaires that made it. I listen to them myself. Jack Ma, I love Jack Ma. I listen to the stories myself. But to me, there's something special about us walking through this together. That in 15 years, when we look back, all 30 of us could be on one podium and say, man, look what was accomplished in the last 15 years of our lives. Look what was accomplished in the last 10 years of our lives together. And the people on here, we get to learn and know one another. Like, to me, it's something special about that. That's why I don't despise small beginnings. I don't despise them because everybody that I just named started off just like us. Started off just like us. They started off just like us. Oh, let's figure this out. Just like us. And that's why I love the group that can be consistent. I love the group that works together for a common purpose or a common goal. Because, man, together we all win. Yo, I've been on this thing an hour. Whew, I feel like I broke bread tonight. This was a good one. I'm going to go back and listen to 4 or 5 times. I challenge you to go back and listen to it 4 or 5 times as well until you become one. Thank y'all for chiming into this conversation. As always, you all elevate this conversation. You all make this show conversation what it is. It's all about you all. It's all about us elevating, getting to the next level in life. And until next time, I am challenging you to wage war on mediocrity. Your boy is out.
It ain't no friend to me.